Hi, everybody. Welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Tommy, and today I'm joined by Lynn.
Greetings.
We are back covering Felicity. Today we're discussing season 1, episodes 6, 7, and 8. So I'll roll the credits and we'll get right into it. All right, so episode 6 is titled Cheating. And I thought it would be a cool idea if we played the episode promos before we start diving into the episode. So I will
Nice.
bring that up and we will see what happens.
Next, sometimes when things are so right, something goes so wrong.
You did what?
A break of trust.
All I want, if you're curious, is for her to leave me alone.
They ruin both their lives.
You gotta go in there and tell him the truth.
Fixing it could cost her the one thing more important than friendship.
Why would you do that?
Ben, I never would have.
Just get away from me.
And now, an all-new Felicity.
Oh, good promo. They don't really give away what the true plot is in this episode.
I
Interesting.
know, it's a little deceiving. From that promo, my takeaway was that she was going to catch Ben cheating and have this whole moral dilemma. How could the guy that I like cheat?
Right? They've really pulled the heartstrings with this. I love how it's shot. I love the visuals. I love the camera effects. The lighting is so good. The use of the Madonna, the Power of Goodbye song every time is just haunting. It's very well done.
So we have our Dear Sally moment. At this time, it's not in Felicity's dorm room. It's happening while she's studying or writing a paper with Ben.
Right.
And they finish up, and I think she says if he wants, she'll run his paper through spell check and print it out and drop it off for him.
Right.
So she takes his floppy disk. Remember those days?
Remember those days? Yeah, this is before USB. This is like floppy disk. And I'm like, why wouldn't he just email it to her? And it's like, did they not even have an email address back then or whatever?
Maybe the file size was too large to email. Who knows?
True.
So she takes it, and I didn't know she was... So I thought she was just rewriting a paragraph of the paper. Because she kind of highlights a section.
Yeah. I mean, she must have made the decision after reading it that she wanted to help him out, and she started rewriting a lot. She maybe just got carried away. Maybe she highlighted the paragraph and was going to do something, but then she went so specific with what she was talking about, she had to infuse it into the rest of it. So she probably rewrote a lot of his paper and handed it in for him.
So when the class, which I thought was very unorganized, their papers are just thrown on the desk and everybody's sifting through it looking for their grade.
Right, so you can see everybody else's grade, which is kind of okay. In days of HIPAA stuff, wouldn't that be kind of bad to just I don't know.
But before that happens, during class, they're having their class discussion, and the teacher asks a question and people raise their hands, and he calls on Ben, who didn't raise his hand. And Ben says that, and he's like, that's why.
And Ben even points it out. Yeah, he's like, I didn't have my hand up. And he's like, that's why I called on you.
Yeah. And he can't answer the question. And
Felicity jumps in. Felicity jumps in and does. She kind of, maybe the preliminary is da-da-da-da. And then he's like, And Julie looks at Felicity after the class calms down, and she's like, what was that about? And Felicity's like, I don't know. But Felicity's got that feeling in the pit of her gut, oh shit, he suspects something on the paper.
Right. So they get their papers, and Ben's isn't there, and the teacher asks for him to come see him after class.
Yep.
And he accuses him of cheating, of buying the paper, I think.
Or plagiarizing or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So does Felicity admit to him right away that she rewrote it?
I'm trying to remember. They go and have lunch together, and he's kind of ticked. And then Julie's got to go to her next class, and then Ben gets up to leave, and Felicity chases him down the hall. And then she finally admits it, and he's like, "You did what?" And he's like, "Just stay away from me. Stay away from me."
Right.
And then she goes, the next thing we see, she goes to talk to Noel, and she's like, I tried to go talk to the professor, but he wasn't there. And then Noel's like, no, don't go talk to the professor yet. Just wait.
Mm-hmm.
And Noel goes and does his due diligence and inquires about like cheating and what can happen and how bad it could be, because he wants to try and protect Felicity too.
Right. So he goes to see like a dean or something, and the dean is now interested. He's like, why are you asking these questions?
Yeah, he's very suspicious of Noel.
Because I think the teacher wants to keep it within the English department and just kind of have like a little panel, like, and decide what his punishment should be, rather than before they even decide if they're going to take it to the dean.
Yes.
But the dean says that they basically have a no tolerance policy, and I think expulsion is the punishment.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah. But Felicity is also freaking out because he lied in his entrance paper, which I don't see why that's an issue. He wrote a paper, they liked it, and he got in. Like, why does it have to be truthful?
Well, exactly. He lied that he had a brother, and they're worried that they might figure that out. So again, I think Noel and Felicity are just worried about the fact that it just is making Ben sound more and more dishonest and not trustworthy. Yeah. He's a big liar about everything. So he's obviously lying about having written the paper.
Right. Julie, meanwhile, is with what's his name?
Zach.
I can never like remember his name. Is with Zach.
Guy.
He's a film student, and they watch The Exorcist, and now he wants to take her to see this Russian film that's 5 hours long.
She's worried.
So she goes and rents it. And I laughed because not only did she go to a video store to rent the movie, but you can see that it was, because it's so long, it was 2 VHSs.
2 video cassettes. Yes, because it was like a 5-hour movie.
Like Titanic.
And then the guy is like, the clerk that helps her that works at the video store, even too, he like calls and he's like, oh, let me guess, your boyfriend's a film student. It's his first year. He's filming this type of stuff. And she's like, yeah, you pretty much nailed it. And he's like, bring him back on time because late fee is $2 a day.
Yeah. I think he said it's standard freshman film student courting or something like that.
Completely. And she's just worried because most of it's in Russian that she's not going to understand. And he really likes films, so she's feeling the pressure.
So that actor, I don't know his name, but he was in the American Pie movies. So
correct. I can't remember his name either, but yes, I did recognize him from that as well too.
So Julie ends up watching the movie, and when she goes to the actual film with him, apparently she fell asleep and was snoring.
And then he kind of teases her about it, and she feels bad, and he's like, it's okay. You don't have to like all the things that I do and have to have that same level of appreciation and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes her feel closer to him.
Right. This wasn't the episode with Elena, right? With the financial aid stuff?
No, that's the next one coming up.
Okay, so we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
this is more the guy that she met that we call him the Tin Man. I'm trying to remember the character's name that she met from Ben's. What'd you say? Blair?
Blair. Oh, I said
it's Blair. So Blair's trying to get some FaceTime with Elena, and he keeps inviting her to dinner, and she kind of keeps blowing him off because she's kind of resistant. He's really pursuing her.
Yeah. So during the panel of English
interrogation, basically, yeah.
Noel and Felicity are outside, and I guess Felicity's like reading lips. She's like seeing his like because she knows what he's saying. Like,
right. Or that door must have not been very heavily protected that they could hear what they were discussing inside, because Ben's getting grilled by the professor and the head of the English whatever department and the third person too, and they're really drawing on his paper and asking him to define and outline some of the things that he wrote about.
And he he made Felicity print out the paper that she wrote,
right?
So he tried to study it so that he would be able to answer, and he was doing pretty good, I think. But yeah, I guess he just got overwhelmed at one point, and he just like blurts out, "I didn't write that paper."
Yeah, and he says he bought it. Did he say he bought it off the internet or something like that? And then Felicity bursts through the door and she's like, I wrote it. I wrote his paper. I changed it.
Right.
And then he's like, and the professor's like, why did you do that? And then Ben gets up and he goes, because I'm stupid, because I don't know what I'm writing about and I shouldn't even be in this class. And he gets up and walks out. So he kind of does a dramatic to try and protect her. I thought Ben was being very charismatic and trying to protect Felicity and all this type of stuff too. But yet at the same time, he was really pissed and he kind of didn't want to have anything to do with her and was kind of keeping his distance from her while protecting her.
Right. So basically the resolve to this is they meet with the English teacher, and he basically made an argument to keep it within the department and not go to the dean, even though some of his colleagues at this point wanted to.
Right.
And he gave them both a failing grade, which I thought was harsh. This is where I kind of like I understand no tolerance policies, but there's gray areas sometimes. And Ben is being punished for something that he was done to him. Like, he didn't do this on purpose.
Well, and then to add insult to injury, Ben must have had a copy of his original paper and gave it to the professor, and the professor told them he would have gotten a B. And it's like, oh, Felicity, all you're trying to save him has actually just screwed him over 7 ways from Sunday, as well as hurt herself too. She's kind of her own worst enemy on how she bumbles through some of these things.
And if he's already not a great student, an F on a paper is not going to help his GPA. He might have to take the course over again.
Right? Right?
She's always doing too much. She needs to stop.
I know. She does. She tries way too hard.
Her heart's in the right place, but she doesn't know how to just rein it in. So I guess going forward, he's not talking to her. He's really angry at her about this.
Yeah.
I think that was it for this episode, right? That was the main...
It really was. I think she bumped into him to the street and he's like, take care. And he just kind of turns and walks away and she's kind of left a little befuddled.
Yeah. So our next episodes are a 2-parter, which is interesting.
Correct.
Everything's kind of continuing drama at this point, but okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So the episode 7 is titled Drawing the Line Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I will roll the promo and we'll talk about it.
Down this street, through these halls, behind this door, something will happen that will bring them closer together, but rip their lives apart. And now, an all-new Felicity.
Okay, that's interesting. I meant to make a comment about this. In that last scene, it showed Felicity by the window and it's raining. I feel like all 3 of these episodes it was raining. Does it rain that much in New York? Because damn, there was a lot of rain in these episodes that we watched.
In April, it does.
I was just so surprised. I'm like, okay, this is fall, this is November, and it's raining so much.
Sometimes October could be rainy also, but not really the winter so much. So the focus of the episode isn't really what the promo is. That's more the next episode. But Ben's still not talking to Felicity.
No.
Noel keeps having his RA meetings with the other RAs, and he basically tired of hearing her talk about another guy, Ben.
He refers to himself in the third person. He makes it sound like somebody on his floor is having a hard time with this girl because he really likes her, and she doesn't seem interested in him. She's kind of friend zoning him and treating him. And then his other people, his other colleagues, they're there and they're like, yeah, she's kind of treating him like he's the girlfriend. But he needs to draw the line.
So one of the fellow RAs is actually Taraji P. Henson from Empire fame and currently The Color Purple.
Yep, exactly.
And in the credits, I saw a female's name with the last name Ribisi, like Giovanni Ribisi, and I'm like, and I think it may be the curly-haired girl, and I'm like, could she be his sister? Like, right. I don't know. It's just a connection I made in my head, but
sure, yeah.
It's probably not. But I made it up. So he's, like you said, referring to the person as like a student that came to him with this issue about.
Sure, because he's trying to get some advice because he's really floundering.
There were scenes where he was like laying back and it looked like he was like in therapy, and I was like, is he talking to like a psychology student about this? But it was just another RA meeting.
Yep, exactly.
It was funny. Elena, so this might be the financial aid situation.
Again, Blair's coming around to try and see Elena, and she's like usually on the phone or something's going on, and she's really putting him off. And
Yeah.
it's not being known right away the fact that she's having some issue with her financial aid for school.
So he brings her like a vinyl record of something she likes, and
Sure.
she's not to play it. He brought her a record player.
He's like, I bought it used, don't freak out. And she kind of just takes it and then kind of shoves him out the door and doesn't really thank him, but doesn't, because she's got this person on the phone and she needs to get back to him and she's trying to straighten some stuff out. So again, Blair from the previous episode, because she kept avoiding him for dinner, is again feeling really ostracized from her, and he's like not knowing, does she want a relationship? Does she not?
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of bugging. He goes and bugs Felicity about it basically and says,
well, she's like, I work in the admissions, and he's like, you do? And she's like,
right?
She's like, I can't. She's like, I don't have a good track record with this stuff.
Right? Exactly. And he's like, well, I'm just saying, will you do it? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, she kind of is silent about it too.
He's
This
like, I'm
is
not going to ask
also-
you to do that. And then he's like, but will you?
Right. This is also the episode, and I love it because they're giving her a little bit more juice. Megan just starts coming unraveled, and she's like,
this is where she's like, did you look in my box?
did you look at my box? And she's got this box that sounds like it's got
puzzle
3
pieces,
balls rolling around in it or something. And she's like, no. And she's like, did you touch it? And she's like, no. And she's like, oh. She's like, I didn't touch your box.
Yeah, she like woke up in the middle of the night. She's like, did you pick up my box? And she's like, no. And she's like, did you touch it? She's like, that would require me to pick it up. And the answer is still no.
And she's like, and then she also at one point says, you're not going to use reverse psychology on me. I'm taking my box with me. And she kind of walks out with it. She's like super protective. And it's the running joke for like the next season and a half about that damn box.
We find out what's in it eventually, right? And it's like something stupid. I don't even remember what it is, but it's like
I'll just leave that to wonder, and we'll see if we unfold.
So Felicity finds a program or a woman that I guess does grants or something for Elena, because we find out that she is there on scholarship.
Right.
And she talks about how she grew up in Westchester, and it was like this rich white preppy school, and how she was there. She was basically like the token black kid that was there on scholarship.
Right.
So she always felt like she didn't want to be that. She wanted to get there on her own merit, and she got her scholarships on her own merit.
Yes.
So apparently her parents, they're not rich, but they make too much to qualify for financial aid.
Right. I think her mom is even dead. And ironically, this scholarship that Felicity found through Blair's pushing had to be like in a certain income bracket, have one parent, and qualify for XYZ. And Blair's like, it's spooky how much it speaks to you, but she's really put off by it. Elena is, and doesn't want to just take this.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's busy packing up her whole room, including practically taking down the Venetian blind. I'm like, really? You had to bring your Venetian
I thought that too. I was like,
I'm like, that seems a little bit extreme. I'm like, when you start pulling the wallpaper off the wall and taking that too, I'm going to really be worried. But anyhow, another thing that just kills me is these dorm rooms are huge. I don't think Elena's got a roommate. I've never seen Julie's roommate. Felicity jokes on her and Megan's room is so damn big. It could be 2 separate rooms with a wall in between, as she even says.
Yeah, I thought that too when we were in Elena's room. I'm like, these are like studio apartments. Like, these are not dorm rooms.
Because I think honestly, Noel is the only one who's supposed to have a room by himself because he's the RA. But I'm like, we never see Julie or Elena doubled up, and Felicity and Megan's room is so big that it's like they have more than enough space. It cracks me up.
I guess they kind of need that, I guess, for just to move around with the camera to film it. But,
sure, exactly. Well, it makes it more interesting too. You wouldn't want it to be so shoebox, but yeah.
So yeah, she doesn't want the charity. But then Noel ends up having a conversation with her, and he tells her his situation about how he applied for so many different scholarships, and he got a $1,000 scholarship, and he's like, that's a drop in the bucket. He's like, so I applied for like 30 grants and I got 3, and that only accumulated to about 5,000. So then
Right. So it was kind of Noel. Yeah. Noel kind of does bring the levity to Elena and really makes her think. He's like, you just thought I was some rich kid from blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you didn't realize I was the poor Irish Catholic kid that blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Saved and spent everything and is going to have to pay off a loan till he's 30 to come to New York. So it kind of makes Elena pause a little bit. And plus, meanwhile, Noel has drawn a line with Felicity and says, we can talk about everything but Ben. And Felicity's like, huh. So then it makes her talk to him even less. So then he goes and he tries to redraw the line, and he goes to the freaking Dean and DeLuca to have this conversation of all places. And she kind of is like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to draw my own line. And then she kind of just walks in back and leaves him kind of there hanging like, ah, shit.
No, I already told him that. They're like, don't redraw the line, because then she's going to draw her own line. And that's exactly
right. He gave her all the power again. It was just kind of funny. And then, finally he admits to the RAs that he's talking about himself. And they're like, yeah, well, duh. We figured that out from the get-go.
Right. What is it? Oh, so he also tries to say, you could talk to me about Ben, just don't tell me that you had sex with him. I don't want to hear about sex.
Right.
And then she's like, but you have Hannah, or I think that's her name, the girlfriend.
Yeah.
But he doesn't.
So ironic. No, not really. Not really. What does get Felicity and Noel talking again is Julie. So Julie and Zach, Julie's trying to help out Zach because some bigwig Hollywood something or another producer is maybe going to come and screen films. And previously they've had like a first year film student get offered something big. So Zach asked Julie to do some guitar solo stuff in some different scenes. They're spending time together, recording stuff. They maybe go out and have a few beers and go back to her place, and the door closes, and that's kind of the last of it that we see. Mm-hmm. And Felicity comes to see Julie the next day, and Julie's kind of folding up a shirt, and she's like, hey, do you have my sweater back? The one that you said you were going to give me 3 weeks ago? I'd really just like it back. And then Felicity's like, well, if we're trying to set the record straight, can I have my Sarah McLachlan CD back? And she's like, sure, it's over there on the shelf. So there's the Sarah McLachlan reference. And she goes over and gets it. And she notices that the bed is stripped all the way down to the exposed mattress. And she looks over and sees the garbage can with the rolled up sheets shoved into it. And she kind of turns and looks at Julie, and Julie sees that she's seen it. She's like, hey, are you okay? Mm-hmm. And then, to my surprise, Julie is pretty forward and says that her and Zach came back here last night and he got pretty aggressive. And Felicity's like, did you guys have sex? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, did you want to? And she's like, no, I told him no. So Felicity,
you say like, that. She says, did you say that? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it got really heavy really quickly. And I'm trying to remember, I think this is when the scene.
I think that's how the episode ended, actually, was that.
Well, no, I feel like it switched to the scene where didn't it? You're right. Maybe it did end right there.
I think it faded. After she said that she said no, I think it faded to the credit.
Yeah, you're right. And then it said to be continued. So we had part 1 end to then go into part 2.
Yeah, so you're right. Yeah. It's like it did. The tone definitely did switch. It got really heavy.
Yes.
But to rewind a little bit, Elena ended up calling the person that Felicity had recommended to her, and apparently she's paying her tuition full out without having to pay it back. And Elena tried to put a stipulation that she would pay her back, and the woman put her own stipulation, and it's that she would do this for another student when she
kind of a pay it forward type of thing, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So in a roundabout way, she would be paying tuition just for somebody else.
Exactly. Giving somebody else the step up that they need. Yep.
So that was cool. And
Yeah.
actually, I think this was, I made a mental note. I was like, Elena smiled, and I was like, I feel like we haven't seen Elena smile.
You're right.
So
She's been usually very cold and
right?
yeah,
So that was
cool
nice.
demeanor.
Smile.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that was it for that episode.
it was. It was a very good episode.
So we could talk about Drawing the Line Part 2. I'm
Yeah.
gonna play the promo, and then we'll get into it.
Last week,
Something pretty horrible's happened. It's Julie.
an innocent date went too far. Now the power of friendship will pull her through.
She keeps saying that she's fine.
She's not. Trust me, she's got to get some help.
Next,
Why don't you just tell me what happened?
Did you force her?
she will confront her attacker.
I didn't rape you.
And now, an all-new Felicity.
So yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this because Felicity felt like she was pushing Julie to deal with it faster than Julie was ready to deal with it.
Well, I think Felicity, she went. I think she went and confided with Noel first. So this was what got her and Noel talking, because Noel right away was like, "Is it about Ben?" And she's like, "No, this is about Julie." And
Right.
and she's like, "You can't tell anyone," which we know how that goes. But she does explain what happened, and I think his goal was that's when Felicity went back and took Julie to the doctor and said, "You need to go to the doctor and get checked out. It's just the right thing to do."
Because he said there's like there's a section in the RA handbook to deal with this, and she's like, "Well, what does it say?" And I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
But either it's so small, or he never thought that he would have to deal with this. That he's like, even like, I don't know how to get the ball rolling on this.
Yep.
But I guess one of the things is because it's in the same building, he had to let the other RAs know that something like this happened.
Yeah.
Even though she
You
said
kind
no.
of have to have disclosure amongst everybody, especially when they know who the two people are involved and the other person lives in the dorm as well too. They
Mhm.
kind of have to lawfully tell that type of information. So yeah.
So
So Julie goes to the doctor and she describes to the doctor what happened when they went back to the room, how they were making out for quite a bit, and he just got more aggressive and on top of her. And she said no 5 or 7 times. And she's like, he didn't tear my clothes off, and I didn't hit him, but she's like, you wouldn't really call that rape, would you? And the doctor's like, yes, I would. And so she's helping Julie understand, because I think Julie's feeling guilty that she's sharing this. And that happens with a lot of people that survive a rape situation. It's very hard for them to talk through this.
yeah.
And the doctor does prescribe to her some morning after pills to take and things like that. And
Yeah.
Julie's feeling a little bit better walking out with Felicity that she went there, because she kind of moved forward a little bit. But as they're walking down the stairs, two police officers approach them. Yeah. And asked to talk to Julie. And she's like, I told the nurse everything. And she's like, well, yeah, that's for medical purposes. This is for a police filing. And Julie's like, I can do this later, right? And they're like, yes, ma'am, you can. And she's like, maybe I will. And they leave. So this is where the statistic that Noel brings out there, like 90% of these cases aren't usually brought to the police or prosecuted. So,
Right.
so they're in the tough spot now. Felicity's trying to be there for her friend and do the right thing. And, at the same time, she's been a Budinsky again, as she calls it, where she went into the folder.
Real word.
Yeah, she kind of looked into Elena's folder and found out that type of stuff. And Blair had confided to Ben that Felicity was kind of being a good friend and helping Elena that way. And Ben was kind of like, Felicity tries to do more good than she should, type of thing, and he's a little bit resistant on believing that.
Right.
But what ends up happening, Zach is over playing video games with Ben,
and his RA comes over.
Right, they're at Ben's loft, and the RA comes over, and Sean buzzes them in, and Zach goes out and meets him in the hallway, and the RA is like, did you rape that girl? And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, this happened on my floor on my watch. That affects my scholarship, and I'm not having it.
Right.
And so now Zach's kind of on high alert, like what?
Yeah.
Because even before this, Zach bumped into Julie and Felicity in the lunchroom, and he's like, "Hey, I haven't seen you." And she's like, "Yeah, I've been busy. I'll see you around." He's like, "Oh, okay." And he doesn't push it, and he leaves, and he goes over and he talks to Ben, and the two girls, Felicity and Julie, see this conversation happen, and Julie starts breathing heavy and panicky and even sweats a little bit, and Felicity just quietly like hands her a napkin, and she kind of
Yeah.
dabs her mouth off, and she's like, "I can't believe I'm getting this upset. I don't know what's wrong with me." And it's like, well, her body's just having a visceral reaction to seeing
Yeah.
this guy for the first time since all of this.
And because he truly doesn't think anything bad happened. That's why he's just okay with
He's
like, hey, what's up? Like,
he's just a little obtuse to how much his actions were
affect.
very dominant over a woman, and it affected her, and what he did was in the wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it was interesting. This is one of the few times we've seen it several times on daytime. I know I've watched it on As Well Turns with Margot's rape, and there have been many others out there where it's very visual for the viewer, and we see the attack, and the attacker is usually, you know, some criminal or a bad guy or whatever the case might be. This was definitely a different beat that the show went down with Felicity on how to play this, and we've seen a slow buildup with Julie and this guy Zach. And since we never saw the moment and saw Julie describe it, we have to react and be calm. And I thought Felicity was very calm and very understanding. Here's one time where I thought Felicity kind of got it. And maybe it was because she was a woman. She knew how to be quiet in the right spots and just listen and not react so much.
I feel like on the same note of you saying that it's played on a different because they were friends and they were sort of dating, that it starts the conversation about consent. I think back
Right.
then it was very much no means no. Like that was what the
Yep.
line that was given. No means no. And now
Yeah.
we're starting to have a conversation about consent. And I
Mhm.
feel like in the last 15 years, that's been something that we've been focused on. Like, if they don't give you consent, it's the same as no means no. If they don't say
Yeah.
yes, it's no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, we didn't actually see the attack. It was behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But so in the meantime, Felicity totally forgot that there was a high school student coming to stay in the dorm to kind of get the cause.
She gets a knock on her door, and all of a sudden, some 16-year-old staring her down.
Named Story. Is that what they were saying? Her name is Story.
I can't even remember. Yeah.
It sounded
And
like
instead,
I was like, that's an odd name to have, but okay.
right, but she's supposed to be there for like the weekend, isn't she? To
Yeah.
check out the school and the dorm and everything. And yet
So
this girl, all she's obsessed about is like
Going
clubbing.
to the club. She's like, we go to this club. It has 6 floors.
And she's got her barrettes in her hair. I mean, they're trying to do everything to make this girl look young and have the montage of being young. But I'm like, you think if she'd be more into wanting to be into the club scene, her hair would be a little bit more down and styled and heavier makeup. And instead, she definitely looks like the girl next door, but she's got this fascination about wanting to go to this very adult club.
Yeah. So Felicity brings her to Elena's and she's like, she tells her the situation. She's like, I have something personal going on. She's like, but I need
And I
you to
can't
be
tell
okay.
you.
Yeah, she's like, I need you to be okay with me saying that I can't tell you. And she's like, no, it's okay. I got your back. So
I think Elena did that too because Felicity helped her out with the whole scholarship thing. That she's like, if this is my way to return a favor for a friend, I'm going to just do it, no questions asked, and I'll take her in. And all of a sudden, this girl comes in with her stuff, and she's like, "Hey, have you ever been to the club called blah blah blah?" And Elena's like, "What?" And she's got like her book in her hand, and she's highlighting things.
she called one, I had a jarring moment because she called one club Gaga, and I'm like, because I'm thinking Lady Gaga, and I'm like, no.
Of course,
I'm like, that's way before Lady Gaga's time.
right?
Yeah, and like Elena's trying to study, and she's just like going on reading a magazine and going on and on about different clubs that have 6 floors, and she's like,
Yep.
I need to study. I'm not going to the club. And she like puts the lights out, and apparently she tells Felicity that she got up at 2 a.m. dressed to go to the club and picked out an outfit
Yep.
for Elena. She went through my stuff and picked out an outfit for me to go to the club.
She's like, she wanted to throttle her and kill her, but doesn't she then relinquish her back to Felicity? And Felicity's like, it's okay,
Yeah.
I'll take her.
Yeah.
And she takes her back.
I think at this point Ben knows because then, as we saw in the promo, he confronted
He
Zach.
comes to talk to Felicity. First he comes and talks to Felicity, and he's like, "Where's Julie?" And she's like, "I don't know. I don't know if she's going to be in class today." And he's like, "Is she okay? I heard some things." And she's like, "You should talk to Julie." So now Felicity is trying to really be respectful and protect her privacy of her friend. And then he's like, "I heard that she got raped." And Felicity again repeats and says, "You should talk to Julie." And he's like, "Does Zach know?" And just in that moment, Felicity did that look at him like, "Really? You're going to bring up his name?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "It wasn't Zach." And she's like, "You should talk to Julie." And bam, the scene just changes to the cafeteria, and he's confronting Zach, going through the line, getting food. And he's like, "What happened with you and Julie?" He's like, "Did you sleep together? Did you rape her?" And he's like, "You've been with her. You know what she's like." And he goes, "We made out a couple times. That was it." He goes, "Did you force yourself on her?" And he like knocks the tray, and the food goes flying. And now everybody's looking. And he's like, "Did you force yourself on her?" And he starts pummeling him. He gets on top of him and hitting him. And like Zach's instantly bleeding and cuts his lip. And he's like, "Stop it, stop it." And he's like, he pushes Ben off, and Ben stops. And this was the best line of the show. And he goes, "See, that's the difference. When you said stop, I did."
Yeah.
And he gets up and walks out.
We did forget to talk about one scene. So after Zach found out that night at Ben's apartment about this, he found Julie in the laundry room, which is where they first met with the whole pink guy.
Yeah.
Pink. Yeah.
Yep.
She was there alone. So I was really tense watching this because now I'm like, okay, now here's the victim being alone with her attacker in a laundry room, like, and he was angry, and I'm just like, this is like triggering for me, and I didn't even go through it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because she's very confused because the doctors are telling her it was rape. At one point she told Felicity, "This isn't the first time this has happened to me. Like, this is just something like, guys."
Which is incredibly sad to hear this. So Julie probably has very low self-esteem of herself because this happened. And she goes, "I know who I am." So she's now trying to inflect it back on her because they're kind of pushing her to talk to the police. They're also taking her to go talk to human services or whatever the department was at the school too, because Felicity is like, "She seemed really nice. She'd be a good one for you to talk to." And she's like, now Julie's starting to act out and push everybody away because she's just feeling too crowded on what she should do next. And she's confused. And I mean, Zach's character was very brooding and big, looming over Julie when they were in the laundry room together, but she still kind of held her own. And she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? But she never said she wasn't going to do that, which I was so happy for her as a character that she didn't get back down and cave in right away. And he's like,
he was being very aggressive. He was almost like bullying her into not saying.
Totally. He said, "Just know that I'll probably get expelled and my career will be over," and these type of things. And then he leaves in a huff. So he's leaving her feeling,
making himself out to be the victim. She ran out because I noted that she had a basket in her hand. She ran out because she felt cornered.
Yeah.
That was an intense scene.
So then I feel like it.
Do we go to the studying where like Ben, Felicity, and Julie are studying in her dorm, and Megan comes in and she says,
"Didn't Ben talk to
girl? Like, did you touch my box?" Like, we're still talking about her box.
Right. But and you're right, this did happen, and they were all kind of quietly studying, knowing what's going on. But I feel like before that, did the Ben and Julie scene happen before that?
So the Ben and Julie scene happened, and then I think that's when the laundry room scene happened, then Felicity and Ben, and then I think Ben talked to Julie, and then the cafeteria fight happened.
So the cafeteria fight happened first, and then Ben went and talked to Julie, and he knocked on her door, and she had it locked. And then Julie goes, "Who is it?" And he goes, "It's Ben." And this is where I get soft on Ben. This is what Ben kind of does it for me. Is Ben finally reveals something about himself, and Ben didn't make this about Julie. Ben tried to find something to align and empower Julie, and he goes, "Hey, I'm just checking on you. Are you doing okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She didn't feel like going to class. And he goes, I know what that's like. He goes, back when I was in California, he goes, my dad, he just would turn into a raging alcoholic, and he'd hit the wall. He'd hit my mom. He'd hit me. He wouldn't show up to games. I was always trying to please him. I always felt like I did something wrong, right down to him not showing up to my graduation. And he goes, and then I got here and I realized it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. And he just, wow, I just get choked up talking about it. He just stares Julie down, and she stares back at him, and she heard everything that he said.
Mm-hmm.
And they just hug each other. And it was basically his way of saying, it's okay, Julie, this isn't your fault. You didn't bring this upon yourself. You didn't do anything wrong. This was Zach and not you. And I think that's what made, then when we go forward to the scene where quietly Ben, Felicity, and Julie are studying in Felicity's dorm, and the kid is there, and Megan comes in, and the two of them end up going out to a club together. Right. Julie looks at Ben and Felicity and says, I'll be back. I got to go talk to Zach. And they want to come with me. Nope, I need to do this by myself. And she goes and opens up his dorm room door, and he's busy putting things in a suitcase. And she's kind of arched her back, and she's feeling empowered. And she's like, I want you to know I went and talked, and I'm going to press charges, and I'm going to da-da-da-da. And he's like, I wrote you a letter. I feel really bad. He goes, my parents are upset. I'm going back to Minnesota. Like, really? He had to be from Minnesota. And he's like, I feel terrible. And I realize, I'm starting to realize now what I did was wrong. And I
also feel like he slipped in that was his first time.
Yes, exactly. So take that how you will. It's like his unconsciousness of not knowing where the line is, which ironically, the drawing the line has kind of a double entendre, because he definitely crossed the line in their behavior of being intimate. And he kind of just quietly leaves.
I was holding my breath this whole scene, because I was like, okay, they're wrapping this story up for the episode. And because it's the 90s, I didn't know how this was going to go. I was like, please do not have her forgive him or let him off the hook. I did not want that to happen. I was like, please do not say it's not your fault. Please, please let him take responsibility, because he should.
Exactly. And I think they show her back in her dorm room, and she kind of just reads the letter, and that's it. She gave him the space to have a little bit of his voice and try and make amends. But then I feel like it shifted to her going, seeing the human resources, whatever department, and going in the door and closed. She's continuing to talk, to share her case and what happened, and those type of things unfolded.
Yeah, I was happy that it ended that way. Even when he was leaving, I feel like she had a line where she held him accountable.
Yeah,
and
she kind of did.
I didn't want her to be like, it's okay. I did not want to hear her say that to him.
I felt like it was that conversation that she had with Ben that finally helped her. Felicity and Noel were trying to help her, but it was what Ben said. And because it was more revealing him something about himself and what he's gone through and his childhood, just like Julie's got her interpretation of her childhood, and I know what girl I am, and type of things, it made her step back and really realize, no, I'm not at fault here.
To give a little bit of levity to a heavy episode, there was obviously the box situation and I want to go to the club, but then Noel was trying to grow out a goatee, and Felicity was not feeling it at all. I liked it. I thought he looked cute.
Even the other guy with the big curly hair, that must be he's one of the residents on the floor and stuff too. He's like, ixnay on the goatee, which is hysterical. And then she's like, you're not trying to grow a goatee, and he's like, you don't like it? And she's like, no. And it was kind of funny when he's shaving it off and she's holding the mirror up and doing it. It was kind of also showing, maybe those two are starting, after he drew the line, to draw that closer together.
Yeah.
Because now, let's be real, Ben and Julie are going to feel quite close with one another after this situation too, on how he helped her get through this.
Going back to what you said about the conversation Ben had with Julie and him mentioning his father not being at the graduation, it made me think about the pilot and when he was fighting with his mom, but we didn't hear what they were fighting about. I almost wonder if that was it. If he was just like, where's dad? And like, if that was
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Because I think his mom is always protective and making excuses for his dad.
Right.
And because of it, I think it makes Ben kind of want to protect his mom because his dad was probably brutal towards his mom. But also, Ben's at that stage where he's like, I need to go live my life. And he picked up his life and kind of moved away from it to make it happen too, because he needed to separate himself from both of those sicknesses, if you will, to try and heal himself and move forward with life.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that was pretty much it for that episode.
I think so too. Those two were two heavy episodes, for crying out loud.
Right.
This second one especially very heavy, but very well done. It's still very powerful and impactful today. Rewatching it brought up lots of emotions watching that one.
We did get to see Ian Gomez as Javier. He wasn't.
Yes.
He was kind of in the background. He wasn't full Javier, but
he totally was in the background. I saw him like walk into the kitchen one time and stuff like that too. And it's like, how they're using him. They maybe even filmed some scenes with him that got cut for length of the episode. You know what I mean? Because they didn't really play into the story. But yeah.
He even called Felicity at one point to ask her to work, but we didn't hear him on the other end. That felt like a wasted
right. And it's so funny. She's like, oh, can I work Thursday? She's like, no, I actually need that time off, and I had someone else. And then she got to knock at the door, and it was Julie, I think. And she's like, yeah, okay, Javier, I gotta go. Yeah, I can work Thursday. And I'm like, okay, now all of a sudden she's working Thursday again.
Yeah, I think that's when Julie was like, you told somebody, and she's like, I told no. She's like, you told no after I told you not to tell somebody.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, good episode. Thought it was
definitely
very, very well. Like we said, they didn't show the attack, and it's almost like less is more because you can kind of imagine, and sometimes that's worse.
Exactly. Yeah, they left it up to the audience interpretation too.
Yeah, and even her describing it, like it's haunting to imagine that happening.
Exactly.
But I guess that's all I have. What about you?
I think that's it. I think we're gonna. Just for the audience's knowledge, we're going to hit some lighter episodes on the next ones that we talk about, and they won't be quite as heavy. But yeah, these were kind of two big, powerful ones. This was a sweeps month for it. You know, they aired in November, so this was kind of a good 1-2 punch. You probably draw some viewers and eyeballs to the show as well too.
Since we did talk about something as heavy as this, I just Googled it. The National Sexual Assault Hotline, the number is 1-800-656-4673 for anybody that may have experienced something like this. And you could always visit rain.org. That's RAINN.org for more information if you feel like you need it. So please, if you've been through something like this, reach out and find help.
Definitely.
But yes, like Lynn said, next time it'll be a little bit more lighter, and maybe it'll just be like frivolous drama. I think the next episode is Thanksgiving, so that could
correct. Yes.
But thank you for joining us for another edition of Queers and Soaps. Felicity. As always, you can find us on all the socials at Queers and Soaps. And until next time, have a great day. Bye.
Bye, guys.